Hi, Sydney.
Hey, how you doing? I'm trying to turn off the recording and I don't know why I can't seem to make that
Oh, yeah,
happen.
no worries. I'm just making a couple last minute changes to my slides. Is that going to be an issue on your end, or are you
Oh,
going to
not at
just
all.
use the link? Okay, cool.
I'll use the link. Yep.
Okay, cool. And my understanding is you'll present on your end, and I won't change the slides. I'll ask you to change the slides.
I'm sorry. Say that again. I didn't quite understand.
Oh, yeah. Are you going to be the one switching sides?
Oh, no, I wasn't planning on it. I can if you need me to, although then I can't see anyone else when I do that.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to clarify if I was the one screen sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. If you could
Okay.
screen share, that'd be great.
Okay, cool. Do you care if I test that right now? Is that annoying?
Nope. Go for it.
Thank you.
Are you able to do it?
Yeah, I was just fixing one last thing and now I will
Oh,
try.
okay.
Sorry about
Okay,
that.
great. No, it's okay. Hey, Carrie, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
Think we'll have a small group today. It's a very busy time.
Yeah, I know. It's why I was like, I don't know if it's worth trying to do a fill your pantry thing in August because no one's going to show up. It's a hard time to get people
Yeah, I
for
know.
obvious reasons. I mean, people are busy.
Allison was just trying to schedule all these separate meetings, one with Christy and one with someone else, and like three or four different food hubs. I'm like, let me just ask Sydney since we're all here
Yeah,
ways at one time.
I think it's a great idea. And we can do it in September, and I could push up the meeting by a week
Mhm.
or two in September to do it. Which it might be worth doing anyway, you know.
For me, that would work fine. I think Allison wants to do more planning. She wants to
Hmm.
like meet next week, and I'm like, oh,
I'm farming. I'm farming next week. Jasmine, did you do a fill your pantry event last year? I see her on the call. There she is.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Um, a fill your pantry event. No, not really. We just get bulk things in and we feature them as they come
Oh,
in
okay.
in
Okay.
like bulk items. But I'm hoping that we can do that this year.
Yeah.
maybe it could be an informal meeting, August meeting. Just fill your pantry, folks,
Yeah.
if everyone's available.
I mean, I think the September, especially if we pushed it a week or two early, would be early enough because I just don't think we'll get anyone in August. My experience with August is nobody shows up.
Hmm. That's hard.
Same with December.
Yeah.
December, which December I never schedule anything. December I always kind of schedule us to like do a end of year reflection because I feel like that's a good thing. You can drop in on it if you want to. You can ignore it if you want to.
Mhm.
It's
Can you
useful.
guys-
We still learn from each other, but
Can you guys see my screen that I'm sharing? Is it
we are
available to
seeing
you?
you are sharing your entire screen. Is that,
Oh, that's annoying.
we're not seeing your slides just yet. Take your time though. We've got folks sort of slowly rolling on.
Awesome.
Don't panic. Breathe.
Don't panic.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
fine.
This happens a lot with my computer. The settings, I have to like, they just are weirdly fussy. So please allow me.
Well, I can't figure out how to turn
Seconds.
off the recording because I adjusted some settings and
Mhm.
I don't know, whatever new AI update of the moment has happened means I can't figure out how to turn off a recording.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to edit the recording. It's gonna have all this
Okay.
long
So now it
stuff.
says I'm just sharing a window. Is that what you're seeing?
Yep.
And it's my presentation. Okay.
Hey,
Cool.
Kristen. Hey, Christy Athens. Buck. Good to see you. Got a
Yeah.
million note takers.
I want to tell you, fish people, we are blowing through the fish like crazy.
Mm.
Like
What did you get, Carrie? What did you bring in?
we have whatever is left from on the boat from Port Orford. So whatever's in season, he brings us, and we take everything he has left. And we
Wow.
are just selling out like crazy.
That is so great.
Awesome.
Right now we have lean cod, rockfish, and halibut. So
Mhm.
There was a smoked fish that I wanted, the Agricultural Connections had this week, and I didn't pick it up because I had too much coming in, but it's like, oh, the fish, I can see that the fish is moving. The variety is opening up.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Shelley, I can't believe I get to see you today in the middle of farm season. What is this?
I'm here.
You're here because you want to learn about fish. Because who doesn't want to learn about fish? Right? Buck's here. Buck could probably tell us all about fish.
Yeah.
Buck
I'm
knows more
excited
about
that
fish
Buck
than
is here.
any of us have ever known. All right. Well, Kiara, I think we can get started. I think it'll probably be a small group because we are
That's
July,
fine.
but we're recording, so folks will have access to it long after this particular meeting.
Mhm. Yeah, that sounds good. I have some, I'm realizing I don't know if I'll be able to see my speaker notes, but I can still go into slideshow mode. I don't know, is it more distracting for people if they can like see what's coming and kind of see my talking points, or I just want to make sure that I'm covering the things I want to cover. So maybe I'll just go slideshow mode, and then Kristen, Jim, if I'm not saying the right things, you can let me know. So does this work for you all? Can you still hear me and see the screen?
Looks
Yes.
great, Kiara.
Okay, cool. Let me try that again. I just didn't know if it was doing it. All right, cool. Well, I'm glad to be here with you all. Yeah, my approach today is going to be somewhat informal. I just want to give an overview of kind of how Central Coast Food Web, based here in Newport, Oregon, how we are doing things here, and offer some outlines of how we work with our fishers and our members, and what we're hearing from our ODA jurisdiction, just with the caveat that I know different areas, our inspectors are humans too, and I think the communication can sometimes vary inspector to inspector, but I can't see you guys, so if for any reason you need to interject, will you just use your voices? I hope that works for everyone.
And I can help with that, Kiara,
Awesome.
and we can also have folks drop questions in the chat.
Yeah, that sounds good. If people want to interject while I'm speaking, I don't have a problem with that, but I will say, yeah, I'm planning on having some good Q&A at the end as well. So awesome. Well, thanks for inviting me to do this, Sydney, and Kristen and Jim for your support. So let's jump in. Today's talk I'm just going to give a bit of an organizational overview of Central Coast Food Web, or CCFW, and then we'll get into, as Sydney likes to say, I like that you use the word fishy, some fishy examples, and just talk about some collaborations that have worked for us and kind of where we're at with the current information that we understand to be kind of the way forward for processing and selling fish. And then we can talk about what comes next, like what collaboration between other food hubs is on the horizon, and what training or information do we need to consider as a group as we engage in buying and selling fish. So yeah, just a fun starting place. And then just a little bit about me. I am the Blue Foods Coordinator here at Central Coast Food Web. I have a background in environmental science and food science. My research focused mainly on relatively small scale, so pilot plant scale food processing and product development. I like to focus on sustainable products like seaweed and think about upcycled ingredients. And then at Central Coast Food Web, I work a lot with our facility and process flow improvement, training our members and helping them through their problem solving. I think a lot about food safety in our facility, and I do a lot of developing and leading some trainings, events, and different programming that we have here, including assisting folks with R&D and getting training like HACCP training. And then I also, yeah, as part of my team, I oversee some folks and work with Jim, and it's been really fun. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Central Coast Food Web. Just from an organizational standpoint, I'll try and keep it relatively brief. Our guiding principle is that we provide services and support to small independent food producers and make it easier for all people to eat local food. So our facility is sort of part food processing facility, part commissary kitchen, production kitchen, and then part community service provider is kind of how I think about it in my head. So we have a couple different ways that we are providing those services and support. And then some of our programming, just as a brief overview to get a flavor of kind of how we're engaging with our community. We have, again, our processing spaces, we have equipment for rent, we provide technical assistance and licensing support to help get people in the door and, you know, turning their local ingredients into products for the local community. We run a monthly market where we feature those local products with a monthly pickup here on site. We host spaces for other organizations to host their events. So, for example, the seafood processing training class that was hosted here for some Siletz tribal youth was one of our exciting events that we got to offer our processing space for. And then we also engage in product development and research on behalf of our member clients, kind of helping them understand how to approach engaging with a new product line if they choose to do so. So here's a picture of me and my teammate Sarah working with fish skins. And then just a quick overview of our onboarding, how we treat our clients. We use the food corridor. They put their info in. We help them through the licensing requirements step, which is often, it can be a relatively easy or big lift depending on where folks are at, and then complete in-depth training with folks. And then they have space to book and process food here at Central Coast Food Web. So that's a very brief overview, but that's how people work with us here. And then just to go a little bit more in depth, I know this is a lot of information. You don't have to read it all, but just so you get a sense of kind of our standards that we try and meet, this is the checklist that folks need to get through to train and get onboarded with us. And this is just so that we are really covering our bases, making sure everyone's licensed, trained, and that everyone's held to the same standard to operate in our facility, because those shared use kitchens and stuff, we just need to make sure that everyone is meeting that standard and knows what's going on. So it's been really fun. We've recently had some more users join us, and we're relatively new, so it's fun to see folks getting in here and more food coming out of our facility. But I'm happy to return to this at any point if people have questions. And then here's an example of the standard operating procedures. Again, you don't have to read it, but just so you kind of get a visual of, yeah, some of the training documents that we use to make sure that our folks are meeting certain standards. So this is part of our good manufacturing practices policy that we have at our facility, where we really try and have, yeah, people who work here, they have to meet these certain standards to work in a food processing facility. I'm sure all of you know much about this, probably even more than me, but it's something that we really uphold here, and is a value that we reinforce with our users. And GMPs are a prerequisite program for HACCP programs. So in order to meet HACCP standards, which is Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points System, and is used in a lot of yeah, food safety regulation, you have to have GMPs. So that's why we enforce those. All right, moving on. So let's get into our fishy examples and talk about how fish is processed and sold here at the Food Web. We have, this was one of our recent fishers from the Miss Yvonne Joe, and he was processing rockfish here at our facility. And as you can see, it's a big, beautiful fish, and he's all set in his gear, working away in our seafood processing space. So just to get a sense, I want to talk a bit about what fishers go through to work with us, and then get into the standards that we have to meet in order to have folks process fish here, and then to sell fish. And then we'll talk a little bit about some collaboration. But if there's questions at any point, I don't want to rush, but I also don't want to linger too long so that we can get to the meat of our discussion. So just let me know. But here is a flow chart that shows a bit about what fishermen need to be thinking about as far as tracking their fish before they can distribute it. So a lot of it has to do with fish tickets and invoices, and having the correct licenses to move fish from step to step. So the fishermen, in order to, and this is my relatively new understanding, we just had a meeting with ODF&W this week to clarify some of this stuff, but my understanding is the gist is that every stage needs to be trackable via either a fish ticket or an invoice, showing, you know, the data about the catch, and also allowing taxes to be paid on how much fish is caught. So that's the general rule of thumb. And fishermen are kind of responsible for keeping track of this. It's not something we do, but just something that they need to be prepared to think about in order to be ready to then work with us. So a little context. Yeah, so again, I got a lot of words on my slides here. I promise there's more pictures, but just for a little contrast, we have some hub requirements and then our seafood vendor requirements. So for us, what we think about is we hold an ODA warehouse license, we have insurance, and these are the things we ask people to have in order to work here. So yeah, we have this license. People come in with liability insurance. They have a food safety plan. They follow SSOPs. And then they will need to have, or hubs will need to have, a food processing license if the hub is handling or processing products for clients. So a lot of these things in our case are held by the fisher. The product responsibility stays with the user as they move through our facility. And then, yes, they will have to have, if they're dealing in wholesale, they will need to have this ODF&W wholesale license as well. And then seafood vendor requirements, again, it's a lot of the same requirements. And Kristen, if you feel like jumping in at any point, if I'm not explaining this perfectly, feel free to do that. But yeah, so vendors have to be licensed under ODF&W and buy from other licensed vessels or harvesters. And as that diagram indicated, you have to have fish tickets to have proof of your sale. And then seafood vendors also need to have a food processing license if they're doing any value-added processing. So if they're filleting, freezing, smoking fish, you need to have a food processing license. And then you need to be following HACCP standards and standard operating procedures for whatever method you're engaging in. And then have a retail license if you're selling. And sometimes I think it's circumstantial, but yeah, folks will need to have the prepackaged meat seller's license. And if you're selling by weight, you are required to have an ODA license scale. So there's a lot of requirements to meet if you're a seafood vendor, or you know, if folks want to engage with selling seafood, there's just a couple hoops to jump through. But once you're set, we found that the ODA is really easy to work with and supportive. They just want to help problem solve. Kristen, any input on this one, or I'm just gonna keep moving? Cool. So I can't hear anybody. Hopefully it's still working. Who knows? Can you guys hear me? Hopefully you can.
We can hear you. Yeah, there's a
Okay,
couple of
great.
questions starting to bubble up in the chat, which we can go back
Thank
to
you.
if you want.
Great. I was just checking it. Great. Yeah, why don't, if it's okay with you, is it okay if we circle back to questions at the end so that I can see everybody and engage more fully? Does that work? Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to go over some collaborations in action that we've encountered here at the Food Web. So this is a case study where the CFW and a group of partners collaborated to move surplus salmon from the Otis hatchery to the Food Web for processing, and then distributed it through the Lincoln County Food Share to the community. So this was a unique circumstance, but one that we were really grateful to be able to participate in. It worked out because of the different partners involved covered different standards. So the CCFW provided the food storage warehouse license, and we had the license scale. And then Local Ocean, who is one of our member users, they have a business license, and also they have a food processor's license from ODA, and they were trained by ODA in our facility. And so they stepped in as the processor in this scenario. And then we got one-time approval, working one-on-one with our inspector, again, who we have this great relationship with, to run this program without a HACCP plan. Like, nobody had to be the holder of the plan because the product wasn't being sold, only donated, and all parties, there was a lot of oversight from ODA on specifically each step of the process and the standards we were meeting. And then they approved our product label and our distribution method. So, and then our record keeping, we sent that inventory to the food share at the end. And we have, again, in our facility, we're meeting those GMPs. So all of the like our sanitizing and we have temp logs on all of our cold storage, things like that. So we're really tracking and recording the ways in which we're using our facility safely. So that was a really great example of how, yeah, we collaborated on moving some fish around from our food hub beyond selling. Other collaborations in action, I think I just wanted to mention there's a lot of interest right now in upcycling and thinking about our waste streams, because right now our users at our food hub, we don't have capacity to process large amounts of fish waste on site, and so they're asked to just remove that waste, and a lot of them upcycle it for bait or sell it as bait or end up disposing of it. So there's a lot of potential for upcycling, including making products like this one. These are some experimental pieces of leather that were made with skins post fish processing. And then how we sell our fish at Central Coast Food Web, we host an online market. Our member users can sell through our market on consignment. So we're kind of the host where they continue to own the product. They drop it off day of pickup. And then, yeah, and then we distribute it to folks day of. So yeah, they kind of sell through our host platform, and we do some of the marketing and distribution on their behalf. So that's generally how we're approaching, yeah, processing, selling fish right now. A big part of what I want to talk about is what comes next, and hopefully we can have a good discussion about that. Yeah, some next steps that I believe could be helpful in hubs who are excited to engage with fish processing or wholesale fish selling is to train leads on HACCP, so hazard analysis critical control points, and record keeping that those needs regarding fish buying and selling. I'll highlight that we are hosting a seafood HACCP training on September 4th and 5th at our facility here, and you'd be welcome to come get trained. There's a little bit more information on that in the next slide. And then I also just would love to stay in contact with other folks who are trying to problem solve and figure things out together or offer support. I know there are folks in this group who are already thinking about a lot of these things, but you know, making or consolidating the info that exists for a guide on hub-to-hub food sales and best practices in seafood product delivery. Identify hubs that are already doing this or are keen to get on board, and then finalizing maps of infrastructure. So for example, we need frozen storage and a way to move fish. So yeah, again, I know that a lot of folks are already either engaging in these activities or have ideas about them. So I'm excited to talk about what already exists and see how we can refine our communication. So here's some info about the seafood HACCP training that we're hosting. Again, that's 4th and 5th of September, which is a Thursday, Friday. It'll be here at our facility in Newport. Y'all are very welcome to come. It's a pretty reasonable price. We will be covering the cost of the instructor, and you'll just be responsible for materials. So please contact me. The next slide has my contact info as well to reserve your spot, and we'd love to, yeah, connect on HACCP with you. So thank you for listening, and let's get into some of those questions. It was great to be here.
Kiara, thank you so much for putting this together and going through it. I think, Caitlin, you had a couple of questions. Caitlin Sefford.
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm just curious because I'm no longer like at a hub, but I remember figuring out who needed the HACCP training, like having a HACCP trained staff person and a plan, and did the hub need that or which vendors needed that? That was kind of hard for us to figure out when I was at the North Coast Food Web. So I kind of had a few questions around like, just if you could share more about what triggers a vendor in particular to like need to be HACCP trained or have a plan versus the hub and how you've navigated that.
Totally. Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the folks we work with right now are technically they are not required to have a HACCP plan. It's my opinion that like as soon as you can get one, your bases are covered, and then you have a lot more options of who you can sell to. But some of our folks who are just getting in the process and they find HACCP kind of overwhelming, again, because a lot of the responsibility in the model of how we operate right now remains on the producer, and we're kind of this host to hold them in their process. So some of our folks are, distributing only in Oregon, and they're doing direct marketing sales, just like a farmer's market type approach. And so our ODA inspector is like, as long as they're following our standards that we're upholding and they are meeting labeling requirements, they still have to meet a lot of requirements, but they don't technically need a HACCP plan for the direct marketing distribution. But sorry, and then the rest of your question was who in our food hub facility has to have one?
Yeah, if you could just share a tiny bit more about that process. So I assume you have like at least one staff member that's trained and like owns the plan.
Yeah, so right now, again, how we've worked it out with our ODA inspector is that each person who comes in, if they are engaging in wholesale, they're responsible for their HACCP plan. So I am a HACCP trained staff member here, but that responsibility as we're organized right now is on the producer. I think as we investigate moving forward with the potential of hub to hub and defining that as wholesale processing, the food web will take responsibility for a HACCP plan on behalf of all of our users is the most likely scenario at this stage. So I don't know if that helps, but that's, again, the caveat is like we have worked out basically every step of how we operate with our inspector, and he's really supportive and wants to see these smaller users having success. So that's what we've landed on right now, and I sense that things will keep changing, and probably more HACCP standards will continue to be needed as we move forward. But and that's true of all food producers. I think that standard is going to keep being really important in the industry, as far as I understand. So hope that answers that.
Thanks, Kiara. There's a couple questions in the chat, but I'm going to move over them for now. I'll get back to them. Jesse dropped a question in about being a pickup location. It's the very last question in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Nice. So we're wanting to be a pickup location for a community supported fishery. Okay, cool. CSF and then licensing needed, and then working in a licensed facility to process. What do we need? That's a good question. I don't know if I have all the answers to that, but my initial thought is that you guys might want to consider having your food warehouse license. If you are holding product for somebody, it's likely that they're going to want you to have that license and to meet those standards, is because we are also like a pickup location for food products, and that's what we've been asked to have. So that's our precedent. But again, we got that answer by working really closely with our inspector. So I will say I always would refer to like the standard that they're telling you have to meet. But yeah, Jesse, that's my initial thought, and I'm happy to talk more about what our conversations have looked like with our ODA and kind of the the way we've gotten to that decision. But that might be a first thing to look into.
And Jesse, when you're interacting with your inspector or really anyone in your regulatory environment, you'll want to be really clear on things like who owns product, who's touching the product, and what your organization is actually doing. What you need to do changes if you are a pop-up location and folks are showing up with their coolers and transferring product into the hands of their customers versus you are a location that is receiving product and holding it for any length of time and then moving it into the customer's hand. So you want to be really, really clear on that, and you want to have that be as simplified as possible when you're explaining to people so that you get the right answers. The more complex your conversation is, the more difficult it is for your inspector or your whoever's responding to you to parse what needs to happen. And their instinct is no, because we don't understand what's happening. And we don't want you to poison someone or get you in or give you bad advice. So they'll say no. Mm-hmm. So just be really, really clear on what is your vendor, who owns things, how it's being touched, how it's being stored. There were a couple of other questions. I had a question, Kiara, about, I think this is the common right now scenario for hubs that are taking in fish that are not you or North Coast Food Web. So folks who don't interact with Fisher Folk on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. I think most of them are taking in frozen and or canned. And is the smoked product coming in frozen too, Carrie? I can't remember how that's coming in. What are the licensing schemes that the hubs that are doing those kind of activities need to have? I think they mostly have meat sellers and warehouse. Some of them have, they have both. Is that the right setup for them? And where do we need to start worrying about them? Is it at Fresh Fish?
Sure. Yeah. So the right licensing scheme, I think, is really dependent on the factors around. I mean, there's a lot of factors that influence that, right? So I think something that defines how we've been licensed is, again, that separation between like liability and responsibility for product. We are responsible for our facility and for maintaining the facility and making sure that we're meeting safe quality standards of the facility. And then the services that we offer include training people on how to process safely in our facility. And so the rest of the liability and the licenses that you need to be a food processor are all like with our producers at this stage. So yeah, I would say generally the that meat seller's license, and if you're storing any product, the warehouse license, is a good place to start. It sounds like, from my understanding, that seems like what ODA is requiring, and I think just again, I encourage having open dialogue with your inspector and just using them as the resource that they are to confirm. I have done that so many times with my inspector, so yeah.
And then there were some questions about, I think Christy wanted to know how much you're charging for access to your platform, your sales platform, and then Carrie wanted to know what kind of taxes are assessed on fish.
Great. So to be honest, just talking about the taxes question, I'm not an expert in that. That's something that the fishermen deal with a lot, but my understanding is that yeah, there is a certain tax taken off of catch, and I believe it's based on species, but if somebody knows more about that than I do, I'm happy to be corrected. But that is part of why the paper trail needs to exist in each stage that fish is moved around. It just has to be traceable. And then the other question was charges for access to the market. So we charge on on any like direct market sales. We charge, I believe it's a 25% charge on a price that the producer sets themselves, so they can decide if they want to reduce their normal price to make up for that for the customer, or just their product is a little bit more expensive on our market. And then for like bigger sales, like to a restaurant, which is like the end user, same type of designation, we'll do just 10% markup on bigger sales like that.
Cool. Caitlin's looking for a link to the HACCP training and if we can share it more widely. And then Caitlin, I think you had a question for Buck about the step forward, step back, saying knowing where the fish is, stepping forward and stepping backwards. Buck, I'm calling you into service.
Curious about what that means in your process, Buck.
Sure. Thanks, Sydney. Actually, really great information, Kira. A lot of what we just a little bit of context for everybody that might not know me. My name's Buck Jones. I'm employed with Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission, so I'm the salmon marketing person. We've provided seafood HACCP for our tribal fishers for over 30 years. We've hired instructors, and it's real good. I see how you that's a real good rate for your for the HACCP class that's coming up. We do the same thing too. We only work with our we don't charge our fishers for the training. We contract with our instructors because seafood HACCP can be a long course and it can be pretty expensive. So $50 is really good. Something that that we do since we're inland. We've had our seafood HACCP tailored, because we're only dealing with salmon, so we're not dealing with shellfish and we're not dealing with products that are in the ocean. So that's been a really receptive thing for our fishers, and we faced a resistance when they first came. Our fishers say, nobody's gotten sick, and we've been handling fish since time immemorial. But it's just a standard that is needed for in the industry. So kind of where I really remember learning the one step forward, one step back is when the Obama administration redid the Food Safety Modernization Act. CRFTC actually put a food safety team together and put recommendations for our tribes to implement to our own food codes and our own models for food safety. So I think that that is what I learned. So like if you're the way I was taught, that one step forward, one step back, if you're the fisher or whatever, you're probably not, you're going to know where your fish came from if you're harvesting it. So you're going to know where that is. And then you also want to know, like, well, if I'm selling it to the wholesale buyer, if I'm selling it to the public, and then then you have a record of where it goes. So it's not, if there's a recall or anything like that, then you have your records, down. And that's where I learned that, Caitlin. So it's you know, so you know where it is, and it changes, you know, in the chain or whatever, you know. So if you're the wholesale buyer, then you want to know, you know, if the harvester or the fisher, you know, that it came from. And you know, as that moves up, and if they're selling it to the retail or onto, you know, other thing, then they need to know. So that was the training I taught. I hope that's helpful. Yeah. So it's um I would definitely you know, and you talked about taxes, Kira. We're unique in that our fishing is non-taxable, but we have a real good relationship with Oregon Department of Ag, you know, and their things actually on that Food Safety Modernization Act, we was the only tribal representatives that was at the table when they did the Food Safety Modernization Act, I think, when they did their like field visits and roundtables and things like that. So yeah, I'm a resource if needed. So thanks, Sydney.
Thanks for jumping in, Buck. Appreciate it. I love to get the audience sucked into our schemes. What other questions do we have? Is anyone doing, no one's doing shellfish off of the coast at this point, right? And no one's doing fresh off of the coast. Does anybody want to be doing fresh? Is anybody prepared to do fresh?
I actually had a question for Jesse, if Jesse's still on, about was the fish going to be processed, or is it whole fish that you're wanting to distribute?
Hi,
Or
Kiara.
be a pickup spot for? Hi.
Hi. Yes, he will be processing it in a licensed facility. He's not licensed to process himself. Which so I was curious about that too, like since he's not and our market person who can answer these questions is not here today. But we are also selling oysters, Willapa Wild, weekly. So to answer Sydney's question, and they are fresh.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Great. I think there was a question back in the chat that I wanted to see. Yeah, I was gonna say my goal has been to share out the SOPs that I've developed for our facility for a while, and just, yeah, happy to share them as a resource, and also open to just like meeting one-on-one. I have been learning a lot working here and can speak to our experience at our facility, and I think there's gray area that we all navigate, but yeah, definitely happy to keep connecting, and maybe Sydney, you and I can be in touch about sharing those resources out.
Absolutely. And we'd be grateful to have those resources available for folks to see what SOPs look like. I think the more examples of how we operate our facilities that are available to all of us, the better.
Definitely.
Other questions while we have Kiara on lockdown? Other fishy questions? I always feel like fish is so complicated. Like just looking at your flow chart, I was like, you can do this or this or this or this. And if you do this, you can't do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have to, I mean, and that flow chart again is like not something that we engage in. Like that's what they have to figure out before they even come to us. So it's just, there's a lot expected of people who process fish, which it's good that there are high standards. It's great. And it's, you know, people are working really hard. So yeah.
Carrie.
Yeah, I'm curious from a marketing standpoint. I play around with different photos. Like what has been most effective in your experience as far as educating the public? Like, what do they want to hear? Are they more interested in how it's caught? And then should I be posting pictures of the raw fish, as it's packaged, or a prepared, dish, which is more attractive? I'm always debating that, especially when I'm looking at meat. We
Fish
have
and meat,
chicken feet
totally.
too, but
Meat.
just this hunk of raw beef isn't as attractive as like it cooked on a plate. And
Totally.
just from a marketing standpoint, when you're sending out newsletters, like what do people want to know? Because I'm just guessing.
Yeah, I see that Sarah Masoni from the FIC is on this call, and I'm sure she would have some brilliant things to share with us if she would like to. But how we have approached it is folks have been able to, kind of decide what photos they want to have up. Right now, we do have a lot of pictures of raw products. I'm not saying it's like the marketing ideal, but then on our social media, we do share out recipes that we're making with the ingredients. So I think it's like, a classic part of the kind of consumer education is, we also pass out pamphlets from some of the commissions, like the Albacore Commission has some great leaflets that we put in with our orders during pickup for folks to read about recipes and how the fish is caught. So there's definitely resources from some of the commissions, seafood commissions, that would be great consumer resources. But I think making food visually appealing and like showing, if there's a possibility of having two photos showing cooked and raw can be helpful for people's understanding of how to use the product. But not to call Sarah out, but Sarah, if you do have any input, you are very wise in these things, so feel free to share.
One of the things that we have done is help people create recipes for the agricultural products that they're growing, so that when they have the product out at the farmer's market or have a CSA, they can include those recipes with the sale. And you can do that yourself if you prepare meals at home and you want to share your recipes. It's not too much work to just go on Canva and find a recipe card and enter your stuff in and add your kitchen logo on there. And if you're going to share someone else's recipe that you found and love, you can just give them credit for it. Maybe put their web address or an email address you might be able to find. Or you can actually change it a little bit and make it yours. So if you find a recipe for a blueberry pie and you want to use that recipe for strawberries, then suddenly it kind of becomes your recipe. So for big manufacturers or big growers of product, we've recently been doing what we call applications work. And through the Western U.S. Agricultural Trade group, WASADA, we've actually been doing a lot of kitchen discovery work with the chefs that we have on staff here. And they've been preparing recipes for the companies to take and present to other like industrial buyers. So for instance, we did a bunch of work with hazelnuts and different ways to use hazelnuts so that those companies that are growing and selling hazelnuts can have some example uses for industrial uses of the hazelnuts.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sarah, that's a great recommendation. Yeah, I think especially for consumers, I think educating is great. I will say we have a lovely resource here at CCFW. Like if you guys came down for the HACCP training, for example, we also have a nice little kitchen that's great for photo shoots, and is rentable if you wanted to do cooking demo videos or something like that. That would be fun to maybe go in on a little project like that together when people were in town. Nice. Wow. Yeah. Oyster food cart. Wow.
It's terrifying. I just watched the tourists do it and think, yuck.
I bet it can
What?
be done right.
I'm sure it can, but it's just so dang hot here that's like even just managing your temperature in your cart so that you can even handle the food kind of freaks me out, especially when it comes to something as fragile as shellfish. And I also, have a contract food service management background, so have been in a position of if I do something poorly, I can make 2,000 people really, really sick. So I'm maybe a little extra weird about things.
No, you're not wrong.
What other questions do we have for all of our fish folk? Kristen, it looks like you were coming off mic for a second.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say cold chain is everything. I think, and I like that so many people are fans of the frozen fish. I know that, wasn't as widely known as a good source of or way to receive product, but a lot of times it's the best way. It's like frozen right at its peak, and that just stays along the cold chain as long as you can, ensure that you've actually kept it that way. So a lot of times all of this is just, we don't have to be intimidated by it. I think if we just think about it as like real people and what I want to eat this and what do I need to know that it's been safe. And, I saw Caitlin's point in the chat about support for writing HACCP plans. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to Central Coast Food Web because they've been able to not only like help provide some support for taking the training, but we work with some folks that have been really willing to do like an extra session that people can like, okay, now I'm writing my plan and what, I'm stuck, or can you look over it? And ODA is really good about, looking over your plan and making sure you got all the steps right. A lot of times they're the ones that are going to be reviewing it twice a year with you. And so the reason why they want people writing their plans themselves is so you really know where the information lives, kind of what it is that you're tracking and why. And so they can really help you understand that and be familiar with your own plan. So it's empowering you rather than being like an extra burden. Like, you've kept things safe and have a record of that. And if anything ever goes wrong, you can have it there to back it up. So.
Mm-hmm. Well said, for sure. Yeah, and I will say the HACCP training we are planning will have that on the second day of training. We will have a section at the end where we will write your HACCP plan with you and review it and make sure you understand it. So it's definitely, yeah, we want to make it make sense. And yeah, the trainer will help do that. I see Buck has his hand up. Go for it, Buck.
Yeah, just following up on that. Yeah, both Kristen and what you said, it is true or whatever. It is intimidating or whatever, but at least what I've found out through that is that everything, it seems like, as long as you can figure out how you can correct the actions, and when we've done the steps through at least through our trainings, there's not a lot of steps. You just got to kind of like be identifiable of the things. And I seen somebody put in there about storage and things like that. I would think that you would need a HACCP plan if you was a place, because you need to, if you're storing frozen stuff, that's still what happens if your power goes out and your refrigeration goes out. So you got to have that plan in action, like this is what I'm going to do or whatever. So it is true what you said, that you want to do your own plan so and what I was taught too is that at least for our fishers or whatever, they don't have to have every one of their crew has to take that class or whatever. But if they have somebody that can take the class and then teach the steps to their fishers or to their crew, and I'm sure that's the way it is in warehouses too, that you're doing your correct, you're doing your plan and you're doing the steps that of the HACCP is important, and I think that it's very true because I know one of the very first things when I took a HACCP in the early days in early 2000s or whatever, our instructors wanted like a process that they did, whether it was smoking or I can't remember, maybe it was wind dried fishing. And our fishers were like, well, we're not going to tell you what we do because we don't want you taking our recipe and things like that. And it wasn't really that, it was just so that they could do the steps of the HACCP or whatever. And I think it's it's really it is kind of intimidating, but it's pretty simplified in a way too. But I'm only working with salmon. I'm not working with shellfish and things like that.
Thanks, Buck. Delaney wants a salmon connection. Buck, Kristen, any salmon connections?
Oh yeah, we've talked and we haven't worked things out, Christy. I know that. I've worked with Joe too, so I'm in Pendleton, but I still have connections. Fall fishing's coming. There's gonna be a lot of salmon here pretty soon.
This is actually Delaney and Klamath. I do also want to get Columbia salmon, but it was actually Delaney and Klamath who asked.
Was it okay? I'm sorry. I there's so much Zoom going on our chat.
No
So
worries.
I'll
I
put
could
my
tell.
email address in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Delaney, I get some Alaska salmon from somebody in Baker City. If you can get up to the Old Hills Market. And then I get some from Muckleshoot Tribe through Walla Walla Food Hub. And then this guy, Joe Martinez, who came to a farm to school event I did in May. He is working on getting his HACCP thing all worked out and packaging his fish. Because like I'm not able to buy, I mean, I could buy rounds, but I'm not interested in trying to sell rounds. I would want fillets. Or even smaller pieces. So he's working on that. He's in Warm Springs, and but he was talking about bringing fish down to Ontario. So that might be, I know Ontario is still not close to you, but it's kind of sort of close. But anyway, that's what I've got.
We opened a fish market today. I'm sure Kristen's pretty happy.
Delaney, I also sent some resources over to Sarah, I think this morning. But yeah, one of the things that the Hub Trade Network has been working on, this came out of conversations with the distribution cohort last year, but this Rolodex of Oregon Coast producers, it's kind of like an internal kind of food hub club resource for now, but we've just been tracking producers of all kinds. I mean, it started off as mostly fish, but who are the handful of folks that are offering more at a wholesale level that a hub would have enough supply for a hub to buy from. And so that's a resource I'm happy to share with this group and add to it, if there's producers wouldn't mind their contact being shared. But yeah, good stuff.
Great.
Yeah, I'm surprised, Aaron. I'm just looking at Sarah Cross's comment. I'm surprised Aaron is not on the call, but they and Kristen and I and other people are trying to work on some kind of cross-state distribution. Kristen, you might want to say more about that since Aaron's not here.
Yeah, just continuing, in fact, OCFSN has funded what started as a distribution cohort last year, funded by ACFA, and then this year it's sort of expanded with a few more folks. Erin and Jesse are both leads on this project for kind of different pockets of people, but really it's digging in more to mapping out who has cold storage, who's got a van on the road, and how can we like move larger volumes into aggregation sites. I know Shelly's been a part of this conversation as well. But yeah, just trying to make it easier to have food flowing through our communities or from one side of the state to the other to fill in gaps and get, you know, the amazing Oregon bounty out to others who want it. But yeah, it's still kind of early stage right now. I don't know if
Yeah,
anybody.
I think it's been moving a lot of cherries lately. Cherries have been the thing.
Mhm.
Other questions for Kiara and the fish folk while we have fishy folk with us? Have we exhausted fish for the day? I'm sure Kristen's like, you can't exhaust fish. Can't do it. All right. I don't have another topic planned for today. Kiara, thank you so much for that. Buck, thanks for stepping in. Sarah, Masoni, thanks for stepping in as well. Kristen, I don't have any other topic planned for today. Are there burning questions that we want to get out while we have this group together? Burning questions,
Yeah,
Christy.
I just want
Do
to
we
say
want to
thanks.
talk about
Kristen.
funding stuff and what's going
We-
to happen?
We can talk a little bit. Let's,
So we can
Kiara, you had
plan.
something to say first.
I plan.
Oh, I was just going to reiterate that I hope you guys come to the HACCP training and feel free to email me to get signed up. And that's
Cool.
all I'm going to say about that. Thanks for
Cool.
listening.
Yeah. Please drop the invite into the Food Hub Network Google list when you get a chance. And we can talk a little bit about funding, Christy. I mean, there's so much unknown right now. For those of you who may not have heard, you know, there's two big things that have happened that affect this. I mean, there's many things that have happened, but the most immediate things that have happened are, unfortunately, the push by OCFSN to continue the funding through the Oregon legislature, which has funded some of the projects that we've seen today, in part the trade network that Kristen talked about, the Food Hub worker safety and infrastructure grants, and the projects that Caitlin is working on, as well as the projects that Tracy have been working on. Unfortunately, the legislature declined to fund at current levels or at all in this session. I will say that it was a very unfortunate time to be looking for money. Oregon has a tremendous budget shortfall, including that's leading to, you know, enormous layoffs in ODOT and in other services. So I don't think that has anything to do with us or our support levels. In fact, our support levels were very, very impressive across all of OCFSM programs. You know, you guys did an amazing job of showing up and writing in and testifying and all the things that we did. And it's just, we just had a little bit of bad luck there. So that's unfortunate. It's also coupled with the regional food business centers are officially canceled and are wrapping up all of their activities between now and September 15th. Yeah, big head shake. There's a lot of work that's being scrapped in that process. So the short story is there's a lot of figuring out what we can continue forth, what we can rebuild, what needs to be set aside and planned for the future, and of course, how we're going to fund it all. Sarah, yes.
So we had a team meeting about the funding that we just closed our grants earlier this year through the Entrepreneur for the Kitchens. And all of the 15 grants that we had approved are going to be funded through the Regional Food Business Center. So that's a good thing. The one thing I have found out though is that, and Sydney, I copied you, and this might be TMI for this group, but I thought since I have you here, I would just mention it. We do want to try and do some training in the hubs from the Food Innovation Center. And so we are looking for 4 hubs that would host that. And the tough part is we would need to complete it before September 15th. So if anyone on here is interested, if you wouldn't mind emailing me or Sydney or both of us,
Yeah,
then
and
we,
you did that with Central Coast Food Web and with North Coast
Yep.
Food Web, right? So
yes,
for
yes.
those of you who can host this, I think this is a great opportunity for you to serve your food makers. And if you have questions, we do have both Kiara and Jesse on this call, so you could probably ask some questions about what it meant. But I think it would be really good if folks took Sarah up on this.
Yeah, we had a great experience. It was really awesome to work with the FIC team, and the people who attended said it was amazing. So we had a product development workshop at our food hub.
Yeah, we got a grant that it actually ties into this conversation or whatever, Sarah, through through the Regional Food Business Center. We're actually doing a seafood HACCP train the trainers, and we got to complete it by the 15th. I don't think it's gonna. We're supposed to be doing 2 of those trainings, but we're not going to be able to do 2 trainings in 2 months, and and with only like 45 more days or whatever. So we do have a small grant to do a train the trainers for seafood HACCP. And they dropped it down from 10,000 to 9,998. I don't know the whole why that is. It must be.
That's because anything invoiced under 10,000 won't. Yeah, anything under 10,000 won't be questioned.
I don't know if we can do it now. We need those $2. But anyway, yeah, we're gonna do that, and actually we're gonna tailor that. We've done that actually before with piggyback and previously with our Food Safety Modernization Acts. We actually got some other funding to complete a train the trainers, because our instructors are getting up there in age, and they're getting close to being retirement, and so we're looking at working with our tribes to identify somebody that can be a trainer moving forward. And I may reach out to the state of Oregon too as well, just to utilize their resources.
So other burning questions? I like watching everybody like hold really still. There's no questions. You are free to go.
Lovely.
Alright.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right, you guys. Yeah, let's close out a little bit early. Sarah, there were a couple of folks that were interested potentially, and I'll respond to your email,
course.
Sarah. And follow up.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thank you. Thanks, Kiara. Thanks everybody for the great questions and great discussion. Have a good one. See you next time.